Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Old Lady Speaks. Today, we're going to be talking about jealousy and why Saul was jealous of David. So, we begin the story in 1 Samuel 15. Samuel was the prophet at that time, and he told Saul what the Lord wanted from him. And the Lord wanted him to kill the Amalekites and take everything that they had and destroy them. But what he did, verse 7 and 15 chapter, is that he kept the best of sheep, goats, cattle, calves, and everything that appealed to him, and he only destroyed what was worthless or of poor quality. So in First Samuel in the 15th chapter, Saul was telling him, and he was denying it, that he had not disobeyed the Lord, but Samuel told him, I told you what the Lord said, and you held back. And so he says, well, I'm holding it back because I'm going to say the good part of it for for sacrifice. And the Lord said to him in the scripture here, Samuel pointed out, he says, what is more pleasing to the Lord? Burnt offerings, sacrifices, or your obedience to his voice? And this is where the scripture is telling you that obedience is better than sacrifice. So he had the nerve to think that he could change around what was told to him, because the Amalekites were some terrible people. They was terrorists, and they made their living by destroying other people's properties and stuff like that. But when it came to the Israelites, they was going to get punished for that, and he wanted everything to be destroyed. So in chapter 16, the Lord he rejected Saul. And Samuel mourned and carried on for a long time over that because he had a special attachment because Saul was the first king. Because in those times the people of God had prophets instead of kings, and Saul was the first. And the Lord told him to stop crying over him. He's not changing his mind. So he was told in the 17th chapter too that in 16 that he was to find another king. And Jesse, which was David's father, and David had a lot of brothers, and so he had to go to Jesse, and he was told to take a bottle of olive oil and anoint David to be king. So as he went through the men, and the Lord still wasn't pleased, and so he told Samuel. He says the Lord told Samuel, "Don't just look at the outside. We look at the outside, but God looks at the heart." And so he says to Jesse, "Isn't there another son?" And he says, "Yeah, we have one. He's a shepherd." So he says, "Bring him here." So when he came, he realized that he was the one that the Lord wanted, because the Spirit of the Lord left Saul and left a tormenting spirit that filled him with depression and fear. So he was going through that as a punishment. So one of the men said that soothing music would help him, and they knew about David playing the harp. So he asked them to get in touch with David, and he did. And so when he got in touch with David, he wasn't realizing that David was anointed. He didn't realize that David was anointed. So when they found him, what they saw about him, that he was a talented harp player, he was a brave warrior, he had good judgment, and he was fine looking, and the Lord was with him. So Saul was satisfied, and he really liked him, and he gave him a lot of things to do for him. And so he said, yeah, I want to keep him as an armor bearer. And so he got in touch with his father, and Jesse, he says, can he just come here and stay with me? That's how pleased he was with David. Okay? So he was very pleased with David. So what happened then, as the time went on, and whenever Saul had that tormenting spirit, I can't imagine what kind of spirit that's like. I do know what depression is like, but to be deliberately made to be depressed because of your disobedience and because you would not listen to the Lord, that's what he put on him. Plus, he took his spirit away from him. So he had to experience this a lot of times. So what was going on in 17, David gets a chance to meet Goliath. And Goliath was out there with all the other Philistines, and they were out there, and he was taunting the people. When's somebody going to come out and face me? Now, he was 9 feet tall, big, and he had all of his armor on, and Saul and everybody else, they was afraid of him. They didn't want to come out there. But David felt like, okay, I'm going to see about this person. I want to go out here and why is he getting away with all this stuff? And his father had told him, I want you to go there because your brothers are with Saul. So he packed up a basket of bread and cheese and food and stuff, and he took it. So then in 17, in this chapter, Goliath, the Philistine, he was out there doing all his thing before. And so he wore all this heavy equipment, but David wasn't afraid of him at all. And he was out there for 40 days just doing his thing. So when David saw him, he says, what does he want? Why is he out here? Why is he threatening everybody? And so when he was asking the questions, his own brother, the oldest brother, what are you doing here? You just want to be seen, and you're so deceitful. And what it was really, because David was not showing any fear at all, but the brother, he was showing fear, and then he had to nerve, he was like, you the youngest brother, and you the smallest one. Why are you here? And so he said, well, I just want to know what is going to happen if we win. And so they told him what Goliath said, that he could have his daughter, the winner, whoever beat him, he could have his daughter, and all the whole family, that person's family would be free from paying any kind of taxes. And so David was like, oh, okay. So he made that decision that he was going to do it. And so then, and Saul was a little hesitant, and he said, you sure you want to do this? And he said, yeah, I want to do it. And so Saul had the garment of war, all the stuff that you wear for war. But he says, no, I don't want any of this, because the Lord helped me to kill a bear and a lion, and all I had was my sling, my stone, and my hand. He said, that's too heavy for me. I don't want to put that on. But Saul was hesitant, but he says, go head on, and I trust in the Lord. I'll be praying for you that you'll make it, because I know Saul was like, I want somebody to get this man, because we're tired of him with his threats, and he was such a big, fearsome looking man. But the Lord had already put in David. See, when God gives you the strength and the power to do something, you're not afraid like everybody else would be. Because he knew that he had the strength because God was with him. You didn't see all the strength he had. You looking at this helmet and the stuff that he had on his chest and what he wore on his legs and feet. He was just guarded up with all this stuff. But David said, I don't need that. I'm just going to go and deal with him. So he went, and then Goliath laughed at him. He says, what are you sending me, a bone? Am I a dog? Because of David's size. He wasn't big and brawny, or like he was, but he made the mistake in thinking that, yeah, I'm gonna take him over, but it didn't work out that way. So he gives him this agreement, and David replied to the Philistine, you come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, But I come to you in the name of the Lord of heavens, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defiled. Today the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head, and I will give you the dead bodies of your men to the birds and wild animals. This is what he told him. So, as we continue, when the Philistines, oh no, wait a minute, I'm sorry, 48. As Goliath moved closer to attack, David quickly ran out to meet him. Reaching into his shepherd's bag, taking out his stone, he hurled it with a sling. The stone sank in his head. Goliath stumbled down and faced the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistines with only a sling and a stone, for he had no sword. David ran over and pulled Goliath's sword from his sheath, and also the thing, he cut his head off. Nobody could have imagined that all this was going to happen from this big man. So now the Philistines, when they saw that their leader was dead, they took off, because the threat was, if I win, Goliath said, then all of you are my slaves. And if not, it's the other way around. So they really, really took off. And in in chapter 18, chapter 18, after when David had went out and fought war and everything. And so this is what broke the camel's back. Because, I said that he was handsome, he was a warrior, he had a lot of qualities to admire. And Saul did admire him because he wanted him to stay with him. He didn't want him to go back to his father's house. But when those women came out, when they got back, when they was finished fighting, it says when the victorious Israelite, and that's in the 18th chapter, when the victorious Israelite army was returning home, after David killed the Philistines, women from all over the town of Israel came out to meet King Saul. They sang and they danced for joy with tambourines and crystal, and this was their cymbals, This was their song. Saul had killed his thousands, but David his 10,000. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Saul didn't care about him having victory and being who he was. But when they made more of David than him, and he says, verse 8, this made Saul very angry. What's this, he said. They credit David with 10,000s and me with only thousands. Next, they'll be making him their king. So from that time on, Saul kept a jealous eye on David. Now, God had already taken him from being a king. But in his mind, he was still king. And he was used to it. And plus, he was the first one. And now, somebody's coming up better than I. Because remember, he says, go ahead. He was all right with him having that battle. And he did put faith in him. But what destroyed him was the jealousy of this king, of being a king. That's the thing that will always get a person. Jealousy, I'm going to tell you the difference between jealousy and envy. Envy is you want what somebody else has. Jealousy, you're afraid of somebody going to take what belongs to you. And this was the reason why the friendship ended. And as you read on, you'll see how many things they went through because of jealousy. So I hope you read the story for yourself, because it's pretty interesting. And I'll see you next time.